Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly Coulter. Welcome to Meant to Pause. We're coming to you today from the beautiful House of Owl in Victoria, British Columbia, one of the best cities in the world, in my opinion. Today, we have my wonderful friend Audrey with us. And Audrey and I have been doing a fair amount of research, I think, on the most pleasurable, subject so far in our discussion on menopause, and that is the subject of pleasure. Because Audrey comes to us from a very unique space, and I'm going to get Audrey to introduce herself to you all so you can appreciate how pleasurable it is to be in your world.
Thanks, Kelly. So my name is Audrey Panter. I own Island Passion. It's a local business, and really, at the end of the day, what I like to do is open up conversations with women about pleasure in its various forms, opening up conversations, and a lot of it is destigmatizing things that we maybe haven't been comfortable talking about in the past. But a big part of it is looking at pleasure in all of its forms and looking at that in midlife as something that we can start to embrace again.
Oh, yeah. You start to really notice first of all, what ticks you off, so what you don't find pleasure in. And I think our audience can appreciate that the most. But then you also kind of tune into, well, how am I going to balance that with what actually pleasures me? So, Audrey, maybe you can start out by telling us, I don't know where you are in your menopause journey. I do have a little bit of a good idea. And then how that impacted you and brought you to your current place in the world.
Mm-hmm. No, I'd be happy to, because it's my menopause journey that brought me to where I am and to doing what I'm doing now. So I'm 58 years old now. And
you look great.
Thank you. Thank you. And there's reasons for that. And part of that is embracing pleasure.
Exactly.
So when I was 40, so 18 years ago, I went into surgical menopause. I carry a genetic mutation that puts me at higher risk for breast and ovarian cancer, or had put me at higher risk. Right. So I went through some preventive surgeries, and at 40, I had my reproductive system removed, essentially for prevention.
So that's a hysterectomy, right?
Yeah, and an oophorectomy. And so the key of putting me into menopause was removing my ovaries.
Okay.
But to prevent other cancers at the time, little was known about it. Right. And it was suggested that my entire reproductive system. So I had a bilateral salpingo oophorectomy and hysterectomy.
Okay.
Yeah, it's too many words, but at the end of the day, what it meant is that at 40, I went into surgical menopause, into immediate menopause. So I went from full hormones.
Did they give you good information about what you were going to experience, do you feel like? I'm very curious about that.
Not entirely. I mean, I was fortunate to have a gynecological oncologist who did tell me I was going to go into menopause, and that might mean that I would have hot flashes and talked about going on hormone replacement therapy if I had those kinds of symptoms. But I was not prepared for the magnitude of it. I don't think
many women are, to be honest with you. And again, menopause is different for every single person. But going back to you, because I know I have a friend who had a surgical menopause, or surgical. It's called.
I refer to it as surgical menopause.
Yeah, I think that is the correct term. So that is a part of your. Where are you at now?
Well, now I'm 18 years post menopause.
Oh,
because menopause was brought
40
on.
to 58,
And at that time, some of it as I didn't really realize the effects that the
Right.
change in hormones
Nope.
were having on me.
That's
And
common.
yeah, and even to this day, 18 years later, is still learning a lot about that. It's
I
amazing
think
the subtleties.
I think we're all learning together,
Yeah.
which is really what's happening right now. Like there has been such an increased awareness of the menopause. Like I started on this postmenopausal awareness campaign, if you will, where I was doing gatherings, and then we developed the podcast. But that was 4 years ago, and even 4 years ago, like it was showing up on the radar screen, but not the way it is now.
Hmm.
It's like the topic of the day.
Which is
I
fantastic
know.
because that's a lot of what I do is talking to women,
I
and for
know.
them to be women in
You have a great
community.
job. Did I say that once already? You
Thanks.
have a great job. So tell me, so you talk to women, and
Yeah.
pleasure is at the root of.
Yeah. So I'll go back a bit to my story because that
Yeah.
really does
Yeah.
come key into it. So 40 years ago, I was in a very different place.
Yeah.
I was still in long-term marriage. I had a
40, oh, when you
daughter.
were 40 years old.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So a lot of changes happened for
Yeah.
me. It affected a lot of things in my life. And
Yeah.
what I came to realize over time that I had lost connection with myself. It was kind of like I was kind of empty. I'd been giving to others for so long. And it was like,
Does that sound familiar?
yeah. And it's just something that as I talked to friends and others over the years, it was this common thing I was hearing for so
Right.
many of us is that, we've just lost joy and we lost
Mm,
pleasure, and not in a narrow sense of pleasure, but in the broader
right.
senses. And it really, I realized I just felt quite
Yeah.
empty,
Yeah.
but yet there was so much joy to be had around me. So I really started to look at pleasure in a very
Oh,
broad sense.
wisdom.
Yeah,
That is
exactly.
wisdom.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm obsessed. I come from a long line of hedonists. My dad always corrects me. That's typical. But my grandparents, life was all about pleasure. And I think we really have to like respect that. But you and I have already discussed that there has to be a foundation from which pleasure comes from. And that is that we have to feel safe. We have to be in a safe place, right? And that we have to be comfortable in that place. So having this be the focus of the work that you do,
Mhm.
I want to acknowledge that not everybody has
Mhm.
the safety or the comfort,
Yeah.
but it is so important. Well, it's important to understand the importance of pleasure, but the safety comfort issue,
Mhm.
that's even more important. But
Yeah.
that's not for this episode. But I just want to
Yeah.
acknowledge that.
I did want to note though that when people think of pleasure, they do often think of it in a narrower term of pleasure.
Totally.
And what I really try to encourage women and myself, my own journey has been seeing pleasure in a much broader way of just those basic aspects of our senses
Yes.
and that alone can help bring you that safety and that comfort
Good
in your body and
point.
in yourself,
Good point.
because it's you. And I have to say one thing that resonated for me that I've always taken forward. It was a practitioner I saw who practiced Chinese medicine and acupuncture, and I remember going to her when I was going through this real struggle of where am I and who am I, and I'm disconnected, and what is joy, and
all the big questions.
Exactly.
All the big questions.
Yeah, and I was very much in my head, and she said to Audrey, the one thing you have to remember is your people will come and go in your life, things will come and go, but the only thing that is constant is your body. That is the only thing you will carry forward with you for the rest of your life, and that's what you need to take care of.
Who I want to see
Yeah,
this person.
and that made a huge
That
impact on
is-
me, because at the end of the day, anything else
Yeah.
around me that might cause distress, this is what I have. This is
Yes.
all I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, and doing that, it made me look at my body in a different way. It's I had narrow views of my body and of pleasure, and when I started looking at broader senses and paying attention to those, like just doing basic things like going out into nature.
Yep.
And
Which is,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that's,
And not just going out in nature, I'm going to take a walk in the woods or go by
yeah,
the ocean. It's just taking that moment of going, what do I see around me?
yeah,
I see green on that tree.
yeah. It
Yeah,
sounds simple, right? Like,
it does sound simple.
but even when you're in nature and you're like, you're walking, your brain,
Hmm.
if you've got, like the kind of brain that a lot of, I have it and my friends have it, where it's like, are we actually paying attention to that
Exactly.
moss? Moss is my favorite.
Yeah,
And luckily I live on the West Coast,
yeah.
where we have a lot of moss, but it's like stopping yourself and paying attention to that leaf on that tree,
Hmm.
or the sound of the trees.
Hmm.
I think we were talking earlier, one of my favorite pleasures in life, it's the simplest thing and I just love it, and that is a breeze. When a
Hmm.
breeze hits me, it's like a caress from the universe,
Hmm.
right? It's like, oh, you're hugging me, I feel you,
Hmm.
I just love a good breeze. I do want to get to the senses.
Hmm.
it, what you just told me from your Chinese medicine
Mm.
practitioner, that, can you repeat that just for our
Yes.
viewers?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So essentially, the message, the sentiment is that in your life, people are there, things, jobs, everything, but those things will come and go,
right.
and that the only thing that is constant, the only thing that will stay with you through your whole life is your body.
Oh, love it. Love it.
Yeah. And when
I
she
think
said that to me, it just gave me a different
it's
relationship with my body.
it turns the page,
Yeah.
right?
And it was like, this is a sacred thing that, I mean, sacred is not a word I would typically use, but
No.
it just really made me appreciate my body more
Yeah.
as something that's carried me through life and
Yeah.
through hormonal changes as a
Yeah.
teenager and through my childbirth
Yeah.
and through my marriage. And
Especially if
yeah.
I don't know if you had the health issues prior to, or if you've had, when people experience poor health,
Mhm.
I had sciatica. This is kind of lame, but I had sciatica, and I gained so much new respect for people that suffer from chronic pain. I was like had I don't even know how to express what that.
Mhm.
I had it for a short term. It lasted about a year. It was pretty brutal.
Mhm.
But when you're in pain, it's
Mhm.
yeah, it's hard. And mental pain
Yeah.
too, right? Not just physical. So let's get to the things that give us pleasure. Let's talk about and why it's so important, right? Because we kind of did a little pre-interview discussion on, how we were going to approach the subject. And I guess what we both decided is breaking down the senses, and I got some new information on that with regards to the senses, but then we'll delve into it a little bit deeper. So I did not know that the senses of sight, smell, sound, all of that is actually a part of our system because it helps us to survive and procreate. So did you know that?
In a sense, I definitely saw it as part of our nervous system.
Yeah.
But yeah, at a base level, that's
At a
absolutely
base
what it
level.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first
Yeah.
sense being sight. Do
Yeah.
you have any insights on sight, for
Insights.
instance?
That's
Yeah. Oh, I'm a wit.
Well, the insights I have is to go outside.
Yeah. Yeah, you like the outdoors.
Well, outside of self, I think, is like
Okay.
seeing what's outside.
Yeah.
Because I'm one who can tend to go inside and be a bit in
Okay.
my head.
Yeah.
So the seeing, for me, a lot of it is getting outside of myself
Okay.
and seeing what's around me. So being outside is one aspect.
Yeah. And focusing on that,
Mhm.
right? And focusing on what that beauty is. So I have some thoughts on sight because I did a little bit of a deep dive a few years ago on what it is that we are so fascinated with the bling, right? Like why do we spend thousands of dollars, or well, not me, but other people, like what is it about gemstones and shiny things and and why do we have mining? It was a mining issue for me. And what I found, I was talking to a friend of mine, he's a plant biologist, and he said, well, when you look at light, anything that reflects light or is light, it releases dopamines in your body. I did not know that, right? I'm like, oh, so when I see the sparkle of the sun on the water, which actually gets me very emotional because I have a childhood memory of that probably, that is releasing a dopamine. So that takes me to my next subject, is that, so these senses that we have, sight, smell, all of the senses, they're there for a purpose. And you and I discussed, do you want to elaborate on the hormones that are released during a pleasurable experience?
Yeah, I mean, I can speak a bit to them. I'm not an expert in this area,
neither
of
am I.
course. Yeah, yeah. But it's interesting you speak about dopamine, because a friend of mine was just recently talking about that in terms of why she wears jewelry and just loves the bling, and she says it stimulates my dopamine.
Oh, did she say?
Yeah.
Oh, so she
Yeah,
knows.
and this is becoming something a lot more women I've talked to are noticing, and just like you said, even going out into the light.
Yeah.
But so many things are released, by our senses.
Yeah.
Serotonin.
Yeah, I've got the list here. It's all they call it the happy chemicals.
The oxytocin. Yeah, and all of these things are released by engaging our senses.
Yeah.
Touch. Through sight, through hearing, through smells.
My sister used to do this thing.
Yeah.
Well, I could do it on you, but I'm not going to. But so you very lightly touch your forehead. She used to do it to her girls. Yeah. And they were called love touches.
Well, I have to say, in reconnecting with myself, touch was the first thing.
The big thing, yeah.
Yeah, and it was just the simple thing of, even after a shower, putting a body oil on, and just touching my skin, and then feeling it later in the day.
Yeah,
and how soft it was, and it was, and I realized how long it had been since I touched my own skin.
Right. Oh.
And it almost seemed like sometimes there was an aversion to touching my own skin, right? So, and then just that simple pleasure of that, and then the good feelings that would come, and I could feel it. I could feel a stimulation in my brain and a calming in my nervous system.
Touch is so I have them numbered, and I don't know. So touch is number 5.
Yeah, you were talking about sight.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about all of them. So for me, the sight thing, I wanted to talk about the light.
I think we should start with that, because
and so another thing for sight, and I think this goes back to the whole survival stuff. Fire, who does not love a good fire, right? Unless it's like an accident,
a dangerous thing,
bad
an
fire.
unsafe situation.
But fireplaces, comfort,
But again, at least the safety, as you're saying, safety,
toasty coziness,
comfy.
Sunlight, obviously. We are in November right now. We're taping in November. What will be airing in the spring. But yeah, we're in our gray days right now. I think that's across the country.
Absolutely. Yeah.
People have to. Well, aren't you taking a trip?
I am.
Get some sunlight.
Get some sunshine, because that definitely affects. Light is so huge.
Yeah. I love all weather.
Yeah, me too.
Weather is my jam. Okay, hearing. And I've got 3 things written down. Maybe tell me what it is that you like to hear. Like, what are or why is hearing important?
Yeah, for me, again, it's engaging with some, it's getting me outside of my head, outside of myself.
Yeah.
And hearing is, again, like, I find it's often the things I'm hearing can really calm me.
Yeah.
Like
music?
Yes, music. Ocean is big for me.
Ocean, the sound of waves.
Absolutely. And the sound, the sounds that probably brings the most calm, and this is probably, serotonin stimulating, is the sound when the waves are going down the little tiny pebbles, and you get that little, it's hard to describe, but it's just that little clicking sound
No,
of the
the clicking, I never
water.
even thought of that.
Yeah, I love that sound. And that
that's a good
sound for
sound.
me is when I listen to that, and I have to listen for it.
Yeah.
I feel a calming in my nervous system.
Rain is my clicking. I love the sound of rain. Love it, love it, love it.
Yeah.
And I do like birds music,
Yes.
stuff like that. Hearing reminds me of what our ancestors must have. I can't imagine what it's like to be in an environment where we don't have tractor trailers and the sound of machinery. I live in a city. You live mostly in the city too, am I right?
I'm in the city, and I spend part of my time
In the country.
in the Souk area, so it's a bit more.
Souk is just outside of.
Yeah, I don't know how to describe that. It used to be
Yeah.
more rural, but it's
Yeah.
definitely less of an urban center, darker, quieter.
Yeah, probably not nearly as noisy as Victoria. Is there anything else you want to add
Well,
about?
I guess the other thing I'm thinking is like often we're paying attention to the sounds that are more distressing for our nervous system.
Totally. That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point. So we gotta kind of.
Yeah.
What's the word when you get,
You have to make a choice, really. I think it's
Yeah.
like pleasure is a choice about choosing, and it's a
yeah.
learning. Like you have to learn to do these things. It's a relearning,
yeah.
right? It doesn't just come naturally.
I'm learning from that just because I get irritated by morning noises particularly. So we're gonna say
and I do find
choice.
like if I find a noise that I get irritated with, then I'll instead of okay, now that's really irritating. Okay, can I hear something else? Okay, I hear the birds.
Yeah.
So it's conscious choices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pleasure is very much about choosing. I'm going to go to smell because
Yes.
this falls right in with what I do. So sometimes when I love all kinds of smells, but the one smell I love the most is the smell of frying onions in butter, and I will go home after maybe if it was this more stressful day, and I'll cook something that requires that in it. Whether it's like a hamburger or something like that. But that smell to me is home. And then my dad just recently told me, I did not know this. I don't remember it. But my mother used to do the same thing. So that is my comfort or my smell of home.
Yeah.
So, and I've done some studies on smell, but tell me your thoughts on smell and pleasure and what you've noticed in your conversations or in your line of work, how smell contributes to our survival with the hormones and the dopamine.
Yeah. Well, and all hormones. I mean, again, all of these senses, they stimulate hormones that give us beneficial feelings in our
and
body.
That's why pleasure is so important.
Yes. Yeah. So at the moment I can't be naming the hormones that are associated with each of the senses.
I've got the list right here.
Yeah, excellent. Because
Yeah.
But certainly in terms of smell, I mean, there's so many aspects to that, right? I mean, you just think about when you're a child smelling something, or how you feel when you smell a rose, or like you said, so many memories of scents are from childhood.
Yeah, and I want to go back to the ancestral thing because when I was doing my study on smell, and when I say study, I mean I was like I just got fascinated by smells and pleasure. It was probably something to do with happiness because I do a thing on the practice of happy, but I digress. Did you know that the number one smell that everyone loves in the world, the number one smell, do you know what it is? It's a campfire.
Yeah. That makes sense.
So everybody loves the smell of a campfire. And I was thinking, well, yeah, that's because when we were, prehistoric or whatever, that was life, basically. That
it was warmth, it was food.
It was safety, it was,
community.
all of those. Community. Didn't even think of that.
Yeah, fire is so central to everything. It's, in terms of survival, that's the first thing you do is build a fire.
Oh, who does not love a camp?
Yeah.
And the sounds, the crackling.
Yeah.
I don't eat s'mores. I don't even understand them, to be honest with you. My other favorite, well, obviously the smells of food, right?
Yeah.
So again, going back to survival, right? I love the smell of fresh cut hay.
Mm.
That's one of my favorite smells. Do you have a favorite smell?
Like you can tell I'm an ocean kid. I grew up
You
on
like
the
the
West
smell of
Coast.
fish?
I love the smell
Of
of
the
the
ocean?
sea.
Yeah.
So especially the stuff that's real nice and stinky, like when the sea the tide is out and you get that like, oh, that's a
Pungent.
real pungent
It's
smell of
pungent,
seaweed.
yeah.
It's the sea.
We're so fortunate to live on the
We are.
ocean here.
We are. We are. And we had a visitor who hadn't smelled the ocean. She's like, oh, what is that smell? I was like, oh,
Yeah.
can you smell that?
I love them.
But and I guess at the end of the day, it's that same thing. The feeling it gives you.
Yeah.
Right. And for me, like you said with the onions, I mean, I have certain smells like leather. Is this another that I smell leather and it gives me a similar scent? And I don't know. I think that may have been when I was a teenager. I worked at a horse stable and I loved horses.
Oh my God,
and
the
I
smell
did
of
rides the whole summer. So I was constantly dealing with the leather. And I remember that now as I'm thinking of it, the pleasure of riding the horse.
I could go to a horse barn.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love the smell of horse manure. Don't judge. Don't judge me, guys. I do. And I grew up with like horses were a big part of our lives. Okay. Obviously taste is, I mean, that's what nourishes us, right? As you can see, nourishment is a big part of my message. We've got to nourish our bodies, right? For survival. It's common sense. A lot of people don't nourish themselves. But that's why food tastes so darn good. That's why we are obsessed with it. So ironically with taste, the thing I love all food. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a foodie, but thirst to me is like when you are thirsty and you take that, whether it's that morning, your morning water or whatever, that is the most satisfying feeling. More so than if you're biting into, your favorite dish, right? So when I think of taste, water to me, water. It's so simple. I also do love a good orange juice, though, I have to say. So do you want to talk about taste at all in terms of our senses? And
yeah, it's interesting because a lot of people wouldn't think of water as having a taste. And
water's I love it.
I'm similar too.
And I do love a good cup of tea.
Yeah.
I find tea to be so like just...
Yeah. And that mindfulness of it, I think that's a base of getting the pleasure in all of these and taste and food and drink. It's something that we often do unconsciously.
Total. Too many people do it.
Yeah. And it's a necessity. It's a rush. We do it our body needs the sustenance, but we don't necessarily pay attention to the tastes or like you said, that glass of water in the morning.
Yeah.
Or, it's a mindfulness practice that's often suggested is taking a raisin and putting it in your mouth and just feeling it with your tongue.
Oh, I like that.
Tasting it.
Oh, I like that. Have you ever done an orange meditation?
I think I have actually. Can you remind me?
Orange meditations are when you take, I have an orange right here. I'm not going to do the meditation, but you take an orange and you it's all about going slow. And as you know, I like to talk about going slow a lot. So the orange meditation is where you slowly peel the orange ever so slowly. And you think about the orange as it was as a seed. And you literally, because there's this whole peeling process, and then you get to the eating process, and it's now a tree, and you're eating it, and you go through the lifespan of the orange. It is a beautiful exercise. I strongly recommend it. I also, going back to food and being mindful of your food, it is really important to eat slowly for a variety of reasons. People die from choking on their food. And that's one of the basis of my slow down practice is you avoid accidents. Right? So we want to taste our food. Have you ever done the blind eating?
Yes.
Well, I haven't, but I should, right? Because apparently it's really it's kind of cool.
It is. And especially if you're asked to guess what the tastes are too. It's amazing how, well, sometimes you're more accurate than you expect. And sometimes
I'm a little nervous. Yeah.
yeah, like, what? Really? That's that?
I'm a little nervous about what someone might try and feed me, I'm afraid.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to move on to
Yes.
the big one, which is, and this is really where your expertise comes in, is touch. The sense of touch. I feel like touch, you would literally feel your hormones being released
Mm-hmm.
through touch.
Absolutely.
So maybe talk to us a little bit about touch or affection or,
Mm-hmm.
like just taking care of your body.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about what you've learned.
Yeah, I think, well, from my own experience and hearing from so many women
Yeah.
over the years, is touch is something that we become very disconnected from.
Right.
And some of that may be because our bodies have been touched by so many others
Right.
for their needs,
Oh, right.
whether it's children, partners, whatever it is.
wow,
Our
yeah.
body is often, not been ours for a while.
Yeah.
And so touch is something that we really get disconnected
And
from.
yeah, and people have there's a lot of, it's a touchy subject,
It
pardon the
is.
pun.
It
is.
is. It
Yeah.
is. Yeah. So I think an important part is and well, my recognize touch. It stimulates so much in you. I mean,
Yeah.
you think about a baby that's not touched, a child that's not touched.
What is it when they can die?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You can
but
die.
it's called something. It's called I can't.
Of course, I can't remember either. This is,
Yeah.
18 years post-menopause. There's a word and it's there.
Having a moment. It's a menopause moment.
Exactly. It just is. It
Yeah.
is. And the word will come at 2 a.m. But
Okay.
regardless, yes.
Yeah. Can you recommend just some things that we can start to do on the daily? I've reinvested in my feet now.
Mhm.
My poor feet. Like I'm just like they're
Mhm.
so far away.
Yeah.
But I pay much more attention to where I've got a whole routine around my feet now.
Mhm.
Like, are there things that we can do? You were
Yeah.
telling me.
Yeah, so a lot of things we can do is just start from the basics of where we are when we're sitting, just paying attention to what's touching the cushion, hands on our lap.
Does that release dopamines or the good?
Well,
what do they
all
call it? The happy
senses
chemicals?
release happy chemicals. So just touch, feeling your own skin,
Okay,
feeling the
right.
senses. My shirt, this is a really
Oh,
nice
yeah.
satiny
that shirt.
fabric.
Yeah.
It releases positive hormones it releases beneficial hormones when we have touch, whether
Okay.
it's with ourselves or with others.
Yeah.
All of our senses
Okay.
release these beneficial hormones that have benefits on our nervous system
Right.
and on our brain, that interconnection with all of them.
Question:
Mhm.
Does stretching count as touch? No, I don't think so. Because
Well-
I love stretching.
Yeah. I mean, I think part of that is mindfulness of your body, right? And that's
Yeah.
a fantastic thing. You're moving your body, you're
Yeah.
stretching your body, the movement, that those are all absolutely critical.
I think
Yeah.
I'm part cat. I know I am. 'Cause
Yes.
I'm
I think we all need to be a bit of a cat.
okay. The last thing I want to talk about is this. I don't want to sound corny here, but the sixth sense,
Mhm.
which is, in my mind, our intuition, right? It's not ESP or any hocus pocus. It's our intuition. So I know that this is not like something that does listening to our intuition release dopamine. I'm not so sure. Does it help us survive? Absolutely. So let's talk about intuition
Mhm.
and how women choose to listen or don't listen to their intuition. Maybe
Mhm.
expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, I think just generally, some women and some people generally have grown up maybe not trusting their intuition, or maybe
Mhm.
being told, to listen to other information as more
Correct.
factual. And I think as we get older, we start to pay attention a bit more to our intuition, which is to what those messages we're hearing internally. And by listening to our intuition, we're validating our experiences.
Totally.
And it's what's going on in our body, in our mind, but in a very, very different way. And it's like it's that term like the sixth sense, but it is the sixth sense, but it's not an airy fairy thing. We know it.
Yeah.
We know
It's for real.
it is for real.
Yeah.
It is absolutely for real. And it is very important for decision making. It's very important for your brain health.
I know that if my stomach is upset about something, the butterflies or whatever, like sometimes that comes down to nerves. Well, it is nerves, isn't it? But if I'm not comfortable in a situation, if my body is talking to me and say, get out, get out, get
Absolutely.
out, or, walk away from this person, not danger zone stuff, but if my body is responding, I'm listening.
Yes.
And I think that's a good way to, talk in this conversation that we've had. And I want to thank you so much again, Audrey, I know that this is, talking about this stuff is so important, but it's also challenging sometimes, right? I think we've really just scratched the surface today. I mean, I know that in our research, I learned so much, and I thought I think I know everything, but we don't. We need to keep learning this stuff. So the work that you're doing is so, so important. And I just want to say thank you so much for being here and for doing this work, because from my heart, it's truly, it's going to help so many people. And thank you so much for coming and talking to me today.
Thank you. And thank you for reminding me of the term that I used when I was a kid, which was my gut instinct.
Yeah.
When you talked about your stomach. Thank you.
Yeah.
And thanks for having me here.
Oh, thank you, Audrey. And thank you, everyone out there. We really appreciate that you join us for Meant to Pause. We know that we're making a lot of people think a lot more about what they're experiencing in their menopause journey, and that's what's most important to us. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. I think we're all learning together, which is really what's happening right now. Like, there has been such an increased awareness of the menopause